Chair, Vice Chair, and Ranking Member. My name is Chapman. I'm with the Iowa Manufactured Homeowners Tenants Network. And we're registered against this bill, and it just includes some clauses from 562A. I'll speak on that too. This is a big bill. This is going to cover every rental in Iowa. So I think we need to take a real good look at it. On page 1, if we start on line 3, it's about the definition of rent. What this is maybe you can get enough money to pay your rent, but maybe there's some extra fees in it, and you don't have to pay a late fee because of that. So with people struggling as they are, they'll pay their base rent, they'll pay off those fees in the middle. What they're wanting to do is squeeze an extra $50. And when you've got every rental in Iowa under this, that's a big deal. That's a lot of money. Let's see, what's the next concern? Sorry. Okay, 1 through 7 talks about using email. That's fine. We just want to make sure that when people are signing their lease, when they're signing into the rules of the community, that they understand what they're signing. They understand they need to watch their email close. We want to make sure people who are maybe challenged, elderly, understand this. And they're not going to get a note on their door anymore if something's flying. And then my favorite part, on page 2, it's a loophole that allows landlords to put anything they want in the lease, legal or not. And there's only if they do put something in there and then enforce it, all they have to do is say, I didn't know it was illegal. I have always been told that ignorance of the law is not a defense. And we actually have that right now in the Iowa Code. They just want to change it around, but it's going to do the same thing. So I have an amendment that I would propose that just reads, a provision that does not conform to this section in a lease is prohibited, instead of unenforceable. So there's one of those for each of you. Okay, what do we have here? Okay. And you can see the same thing if you look on page 3, line 34, and they are talking about, that would go back to manufactured housing. This is on just regular rentals. In manufactured housing, we always say things are a little bit worse. Under this language in the bill, instead of just the landlord, they put the tenant in there too. So if a tenant enforces the landlord's provision in a lease and it isn't legal, the landlord can sue the tenant, is what it says right now by Iowa law. So here's an amendment, same as the other one, that would completely clean that up. All right. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm going as quick as I can. So there is new language about the landlord entering a site after the removal of a tenant to winterize a manufactured home, and I think that's kind of telling. These guys want these homes, and if they can get you out of them, they want to get their hands on it. And I lived under a predatory landlord for 5 years, and I saw it happen. And the way it works in Iowa is in manufactured housing, you get a 1-year lease. After that, it goes month to month. They can just refuse your rent at any time. No just cause of eviction. And I'm going to share this with you. They actually did this to a woman in my park. She was injured, had paid $62,000 for her home from a settlement, bought a car, and 2 years later they just denied her rent. She had the newest home in the park. And she wound up the last couple of days selling it for $22,000, lost $40,000 in the deal because she didn't want them to get a hold of it. She knew what they were trying to do. And they did the same thing to my neighbor, but I'm not going to go into that. And just so you know, tying into that, tying into those lease provisions, The new landlord we got, we chased the private equity out of there. And the same thing in North Liberty. Here's an actual lease that we have from our new owners, just called Park Management. We asked for this, they put it in. At the end of the term, this rental agreement shall automatically be renewed for the same duration. Unless you want to move, unless you want to sell, or unless the landlord notifies the tenant in writing that the agreement is not being renewed for good cause. So they can't just say, we're just ending this. They have to have a good reason. Yeah. They have to have a good reason to not renew your lease. Peaceful possession, they want to go from 30 days to 60 days. Representative Judge, I know you understand the peaceful possession part really well. You can explain it much better than I can. I researched it, but I think if I'm going to this right, it goes back in time for previous infractions that the tenant might not even know of, that might be wrong. I'm going to leave it up to Senator Judge. And then just one last quick thing. There's a clause in there, page 7, line 21, and what it boils down to is immediately, if somebody is removed from a home, they can immediately throw all their belongings in a dumpster, where they used to at least go outside and put stuff on the curb. So imagine being a child. And, you might think, well, how could somebody let things get that bad? A lot of times people are depressed, they're mentally ill, they're in denial. They don't think this could happen to them, but it does. So think of that child standing outside watching their desk that they had stickers on, their chest of drawers that had stickers on, their bed getting tossed into a dumpster. I actually drove by a woman who they put all their stuff out on the curb years ago. And the people in the neighborhood were walking by and looking at it. And I stopped and got out and went and hung out with her. And when people were starting to look at her stuff, I said, hey, there's a truck coming. You need to leave your stuff alone. So at least they got a chance to get their stuff back. And didn't have to watch it get thrown in the dumpster. And that's all I have. Thank you very much for listening to me. Since 2019, I've been fighting this battle in private equity by our park, and I'm really probably a little more intense than they need to be. I don't need to come off that way, but I'm very passionate about this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug Stryker. Go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug Stryker on behalf of multiple clients all registered undecided. First is the Iowa State Bar Association. We have folks who are passionate on both sides of this, and so we are undecided. One place where they have coalesced with some concern would be sections 4 and 9 on the illegal provisions being allowed to be maintained in a lease, and not having a penalty for having an illegal provision in a lease unless it is willfully enforced. Individuals read leases and they see the language, they don't know that it's illegal language. That has the effect of enforcing it without being willfully enforced. We believe the current law as is, that doesn't allow illegal provisions in a lease, is sufficient. Another client registered on the bill is Reed Elsevier LexisNexis. They collect public information so that entities can have access to that. One of the things that they collect is court records. When we're dealing with the expungement language, we've worked in the past to make sure that there are actual filings that can be found in the public record so that they're of record and we know when somebody has had these expungements enacted. The current language doesn't quite get there. We've had previous language that was clear on that. We would work with the stakeholders to make sure that we had something, should this bill move forward, that creates the appropriate filing to trigger the expungement knowledge in records that people would actually see. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Andy Conlon on behalf of the Iowa Manufactured housing association, we are registered to support this bill. I want to be conscious of the short subcommittee. I'll just make 3 quick points. First, I'm happy to speak to any specific provision in the bill. 2, there are a number of stakeholders who've been working throughout this session to try to develop compromise language that not only addresses the provisions in this bill, but also some other bills related to landlord tenant law that have been discussed over this General Assembly. I think the stakeholder groups are close. He's not here, but I will publicly thank Pete Roberts for his work on that. And my hope is that once this vehicle, presuming we move it forward and we move it forward today, is available for floor action, that this bill will be significantly different and address many of the concerns that were raised during the second process. And third, and I hate to go long, but I just have to say, obviously during the first presentation we heard this morning, there were a fair number of accusations made. I would be happy to run down any of those accusations and provide the landlord side of that story, because obviously we know in these types of situations that there are multiple sides to every one of these stories. So happy to follow up on that if you'd like, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Jacob Schrader on behalf of the Greater Iowa Apartment Association. We're registered in favor of the bill. I want to reiterate what Amy had mentioned on the stakeholder groups trying to work together to find a compromise. I'm happy to answer any questions. I also have Kyle here, who's a landlord in Iowa City. He's happy to answer any specific questions on the practicalities of the bill. But overall, we just thank everyone who's been able to work together and hopeful that this can move forward and serve as a vehicle for compromise. Thank you.
I am Laura Hester with the Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence. We represent service providers across Iowa that support victims of sexual and domestic violence and human trafficking. Housing is a leading cause of homelessness. Domestic violence, sexual violence is a leading cause of homelessness for women and children. We're very interested in these bills. I'm interested that there are some compromise language. Happy to see that right now. We are registered against the bill. The biggest concerns are including utilities and part of rent. That may increases the cost of people who are trying and have other needs, and we try to help them stay housed, and when you include all those costs in it, it creates a higher barrier to do that. We're also concerned about the lease provisions. We were glad to see changes in the Senate when this passed, that making a peaceful possession down from horrendous 90 days to 6 days is an improvement. But we really, I hope there is a bill that addresses some of the other tenant protections that have been talked about and supported in a bipartisan manner for 5 years. So right now, we still no, and look forward to seeing the changes. Thank you.
Caitlin Jarson with the Judicial Branch. We're registered undecided on the bill. Appreciate the collaboration over the past, it's been a couple of years. We do have some language in section, excuse me, section 15 that we worked on regarding remote proceedings that are permissible. The only section in there is at the end of 15 that a non-moving party may attend the hearing in person without further notice or motion. And that we may be able to work out, but I have not had an opportunity from the time this was scheduled to the meeting to reach back out and verify, and I don't want to go off my rusty memory. So I pretty much just wanted to flag it for you that the hybrid approach with 0 notice maybe will be an issue, but we think we can probably work with it. Thanks.
Anyone else for Senate File 412?
Sorry, I thought that my colleague was speaking. Lisa Davis Cook with the Iowa Association for Justice. We're registered as opposed to the bill. I will keep my comments short. Basically, we agree with everything Mr. Strike said for the Bar Association regarding the illegal provisions, including the rule of earned lease. I know we've heard from landlords previously that if they take over a property and there's already leases in place, it's hard for them to change those leases midstream. But if that is the case, then I think maybe there could be a provision in this that the illegal provisions had to be taken out at lease renewal, so we know that those provisions aren't continuing. I have not seen any compromise language. I'd love to see it and see if it addresses our concerns, but I just want to flag that, so thank you.
Okay, representatives? Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very important piece of legislation that we take our time on. And whenever we talk about landlord-tenant rights, we take a clear and very clear and sober view. because there's always two sides to everything, and there's good landlords, there's bad landlords, there's good tenants, there's bad tenants. We understand that. However, we have to make sure there's protections in here for the tenants as well. I do like the expungement part, thinking that's probably gonna be one of the changes coming. I think we need to get, expungement needs to be, we need to go deeper into that, having somebody be 7 years before they can get something expunged off their record, is way too long. I also think we need to take a look at every other section of this bill. And many of them were mentioned today, that needed to take place. And I'd like to be part of that, in fixing this bill once and for all. I think we need to take a really good hard look at where people live, is their place of, where they hang their hat at night's a very important piece of, their life. So taking all these other sections in here, and you heard mentioned definition of rental agreement, illegal rental agreements, peaceful possession. We need to take a very good, and hopefully we can make some changes. Especially when it comes to manufactured housing would be a big part of this, as it does go into that code with private equity, buying a lot of these properties, not having leases, and just cause for eviction. So I look forward to working on this. I won't sign off today, and hope we can get this thing a little further down the road.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm willing to sign off on this today, advance it to committee. I do look forward to also working with Representative Judge on making this bill better.
Okay, just in closing comments, I will say, I want to thank Representative Judge for the work that we've done on this for the last 2 years. There's going to be a significant amount of work done on this. I can promise an amendment. We talked about that yesterday, and you have my commitment on that. I also appreciate the stakeholders in the room that spoke on, in favor and had some issues with the bills. They have worked extremely hard in the last year to try to come up with some, what I think are very solid compromises that you'll see coming forth in an amendment. So we'll continue to move this into committee today for further discussion, and looking forward to an amendment to address some of the things that were brought up today.